friend of a friend. Someone had told you 10 miles up the road you may get some assistance. That's because you crossed the Ohio River did not mean you were safe, because you could be kidnapped and taken back.
You know, we're very rural in Appalachia. We're located right along the Ohio River, and Ohio bordered slave states. So as far back as slavery, when I can just imagine those people, if I can just get over there, meaning Ohio, I'll be free. There were runaways. People were sold up and down the river, even though Ohio was a free state. But it was not a welcoming state. You weren't a slave here, but you couldn't stay. For example, Ohio had black laws that you could not settle here unless you had $200 per person. You had to register with the courthouse. Who's with you? How many of you are there? You couldn't be unemployed, but at the same time, there were limits to who you could hire, what kind of work you could do. You couldn't sell them a gun. It was very, very difficult. We basically subsisted on our own. So these communities, these small communities developed, all of which were in the very rural, very hilly, very woody areas. Don't know how many of us there are or how long we're going to be here. Buck Ridge is one. Morgan Township.
In 1839, my family, which is I'd say 5 generations from where I am, started in Bedford County, Virginia, with a man by the name of Charles Lambert Jr. And in 1839, he decided to set all of what we know to be his slaves free. When he made out his will, and he sold everything that he had, down to the knives and forks and spoons and everything he had, in order to get money to bring my family to Ohio. So he sent his executors here to Morgan County, or Morgan Township, Gallia County, Ohio, in 1843 to buy land from right up the road, which we call in Morgan Township. About 250 acres of land, and put 26 individuals. In 1843, which was 20 years before the Civil War, between the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation and all those things together. It's a mystery. And before they come in 1843, as I told you earlier, that those who were living there was already working with the Underground Railroad. This was a direct route from across the Ohio River to there, to go on north. And I think that Charles Lambert had to have some connection with the Underground Railroad. Underground Railroad, if you've had anything to deal with them, it's a very secretive thing. The Ohio River plays a big part in the, well, I call it, to the Promised Land. That was we call our Statue of Liberty. They all owned farms, they had farm animals, and at that time, you know, that's where you made your living. But they existed and they lived, and here we are today. We survived, and because he did what he did with the money that he gave, the philanthropship that he provided, that we actually existed. We didn't come here and we didn't starve out, but we actually made it. I was born there. Now, I never lived there, never grew up there, but my parents did, and their parents before them, they grew up there. They had a school, they had a church, they had everything. There was a community. Now, we don't own the land that was given to us between that time. As years went by, that people moved away and people left, and somebody had to pay the taxes. And the thing of it is, the taxes got so high that nobody was able to pay them because there's nobody still living on there. So it finally sold on the courthouse step. But my Statue of Liberty is the Ohio River. When you come on this side of the river, that you actually felt that you had a chance. Not an equal chance, but you had a chance. Our main name to fame is that we're the oldest emancipation celebration in the United States of America.
Emancipation celebration was always a special time for us. It wasn't like it is now, where they've got vendors and this and that, and it was more integrated. It wasn't. It was primarily blacks. Whites were always welcome to come, but it was a celebration of freedom. It would be a homecoming for just people that had lived here went away, come back, and then of course celebration of being free. And no matter what day of the week it fell on. September 22nd, which is when Lincoln signed the Emancipation, went into effect on January 1st, 1863. But when he signed it in September 22nd, people would take off from work. It was just that big of an occasion. That was the only place where you could actually, you had a queen. You nominated a queen, it was somebody black, because you weren't going to be recognized in the larger community. They generally would have speakers, whether they were political or religious leaders from around the state. There would be thousands of people that came. It was a very rural area where they had, they called it a park, but I mean it was just basically trees and grass. It was about a mile from our home, and we would walk in a hurry to get there. When we got there, of course, generally they would have church services in the beginning, and people are pulling in and getting out, you know, and you have the dinners. Everybody would bring food, you know, hams and chickens and cakes and pies and alcohol out of the trunk of the car, but everybody would share with the other one. And of course it was people that hadn't seen each other for a long time, the older ones. You'd celebrate the older ones, or they would acknowledge them from the stage. There were games, where there was greasy pig, you know, who could catch that pig, or put some money up on top of a post, grease that post with lard, and then if you could climb it, to try to get up there and get that, probably $1 bill at that time. And then also, they would be discussing the politics of the day, who's running for office, even though they would be, at that time, all white. Who should we, as a people, get behind and vote for? And then the young ones, of course, would be looking at girls looking at boys and boys looking at girls.
Transportation ain't like it is today. You almost had to find somebody that had a car that you can get in with to drive all the way out to Bidwell where we're holding the Emancipation. So, but if you can find a way if there's a pretty girl out there. Yeah. They had games. They had horseshoe pitching contests, and horse racing, baseball. They had a baseball field and a track that they ran horse races around. And even the schools and school systems around would shut their doors to let the black kids come out to the Emancipation celebration. We are the oldest continuous running celebrations in the United States. Of course, I wasn't there back when those black Civil War troops came home, but I know that there was a big celebration. I know when they came back, and I think having that many black Civil War soldiers, living and dead, that came from Gallia County, played a big part in being able to keeping it going through the years. The Emancipation Proclamation is as important as the Declaration of Independence. When I was growing up, the black community in Gallipolis and out in the county kind of revolved around the black churches.
Those communities were very close, very tight. One big church day might bring people from all of those communities. Black Fork was another one.
Established in 1819, the Union Baptist Church in Lawrence County, Ohio, is recognized as the oldest active black church in Appalachia.
I remember going to the older churches, and Union was one of them, and you would hear often they would have the windows open. There was no AC in those days. And anybody know what I'm talking about? Amen. Amen. And you would hear them singing when you pulled up sometimes if you happened to be late, as Sometimes I have been, and some of you know what I'm talking about that as well. You would hear them singing outside, and what great times, amen? We used to have a good time. It is my desire that we continue to do that.
Which one?